Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast, part of the 440 Sports Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Billy Derrick. Luke Wyatt, not available to join us for the roundtable edition, which we usually do on Wednesdays. Luke is in Atlanta. We will talk some baseball. The D1Baseball poll is out, and Vanderbilt's got a place in it. We'll talk some basketball. The Commodores take on red-hot Auburn tonight. We'll get into those topics. We'll hit the mailbag. And before we do those, a reminder, our news presented by the Wash House. Are you dreading laundry day? By the way, the Wash House also presents basketball season. Is it stealing time from the things you truly enjoy? Let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you. With 2 convenient locations in the greater Nashville area, just drop off your dirty laundry. Our professional attendants can give you back the one thing you can never have enough of. That is your time. Within 24 hours, pick up your nicely folded, fresh, clean laundry, ready to be put away. Check out washhouseclean.com. Stop in today. Get your time back. Baseball season presented by our friends at the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company. It is a family-owned third-generation milk and ice cream distribution company located in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. A partnership began 50 years ago with Purity Dairy in Nashville to provide purity milk and ice cream to consumers. In Middle Tennessee, they now serve Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, Chattanooga, North Georgia. Today, they supply grocery stores, convenience stores, and others with Purity products, as well as Mayfield, Nestle, and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Purity, my favorite, the homemade vanilla. Got to have it. For more information, visit their website at mpmci.com. All right, since the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Studio sponsors baseball, since I think folks are a little bit more excited about than they are hoops right now, let's talk baseball. D1Baseball poll comes out. There's 5 or 6 baseball polls. I think the 2 that get the most attention are probably the 3 are Baseball America. I don't think that one's come out yet. The coaches poll, and probably my favorite, D1Baseball. Here's your top 10, Billy. Wake Forest, Florida, Arkansas, LSU, TCU, Vanderbilt at 6, Oregon State, Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Clemson. Billy, do you notice anything there?
It just means more, Chris, huh?
Yes.
I mean, it just keeps getting better every year. I mean, you feel like every year with, the SEC, not only in football and basketball, but also baseball, it can't get better, right? I mean, can it get any better than this? Well, every year feels like it can. And Chris, this might be a stupid question. Texas and Oklahoma, not this year, right? But the next for baseball, right? Because
Correct.
okay, got it. So, but even still, without them, you still have 6 in the top 10. And to have, teams like Florida, Arkansas, LSU, those are 2 through 4 right there, Vandy and Tennessee and A&M rounding it out. And, throughout that, you still got Texas, a team that's coming into the SEC, Alabama, so South Carolina, you still got some lingering teams too. So Texas and OU aren't even here yet, Chris, and you still got 6 out of the top 10. It's going to be another fun year in the SEC.
Well, the baseball schedule in the SEC, there's 3 teams you don't play. Vanderbilt does not play Arkansas, which is 3rd. It does not play, I believe, Alabama, which is 19 and is really rebuilt quickly under Rob Walton, especially that pitching staff. They got a lot of arms. And the other team Vanderbilt does not play, I believe, is Ole Miss, which is not ranked. And I don't know how close Ole Miss would be to being ranked. D1 will come out with its regional predictions here in a week or 2. That probably tells you a little bit more. Frankly, I watch those a little bit more than I watch the top 25. But yeah, I mean, I don't think number 6 surprises me much at all. You've heard some corporate waffling by D1Baseball. I don't mean that the wrong way. I just mean that you hear one guy talk, you hear Joe Headley talk. He talked like that might be his preseason national favorite. You heard some other guys over there talk and felt like some other guys might be a little bit lower on Vanderbilt. You could really make an argument either way. Now, the more I look at it, they got a lot of experience coming back. They're old. That's usually a really good recipe. In some ways, it reminds me of before the 2019 season. Now, there were a couple differences. They had a J.J. Bleday and an Austin Martin on that team that I don't think they got two hitters like that. But they got depth, and you never know if Davis Diaz is going to pop, if one of those freshmen, whether that's Holcomb or Koziel or one of those guys is going to pop. The pitching, they got probably 15 guys they can throw. It's going to be an interesting season. And I'm not going to say they get an easy start, but you could do a lot harder in the SEC than Auburn, South Carolina, Missouri off the bat. And now then you go LSU, A&M, Florida, back to back to back. That's as the toughest it's going to get for anybody, anywhere, anytime. But it's going to be an interesting season and an interesting start to the season now that we know what the rankings. In my mind, D1 is the premier place to rank teams, and I've been waiting for that one for a while.
Yeah, and every year I think it's a reassuring sign for Vandy fans to see that, especially in the midst of some pretty bad basketball years and obviously lean football years, over the years, these last 6-7 years, to see this ranking, this preseason ranking come out. Chris, I talked to somebody about this preseason ranking. We see it in football with teams like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, maybe not anymore, but top 10 every year, right? And to have a team in the top 10 every year, I almost credit the coach and that culture that he's built, because it is, I don't know the number, but it's been several consecutive seasons Vandy's being ranked in the top 10. And Chris, I call it the Tim Corbin bump. Say Tim Corbin retires after this season. Naturally, I don't think you see them in the top 10. It's a credit to what he's built, and obviously they've got talent. It's not discrediting their talent, but that's saying something. They finished last year ranked, I think, 19th. I want to say,
so which I think was a little low, maybe, but
yeah. They obviously won the SEC tournament, lost in the regional. I think that probably pushed them back, especially losing to a Xavier team like that. But
yeah,
you mentioned the schedule, Chris, and this schedule lines up, I say, easier. They still play in that the Astros Classic, whatever they call that, round robin against Louisiana, Houston, and Texas. But FAU, Gonzaga is actually not bad. Illinois State, so it kind of, Indiana is a pretty good team. They have to play in the midweek. Dayton, so I think, obviously the preseason lines up not super difficult. And then, like you said, the SEC slate, you kick it off with Auburn. Auburn's solid, but at home, that's a series Vanderbilt should probably win. At South Carolina, they were down last year, ranked in the top 25 this year, but definitely, a winnable series. And then Missouri. So first three SEC series, like you said, Chris, are not, it's not unbearable. So, but yeah, you got to talk about the pitching staff, and I think that's where I'll start. Carter Holton, Devin Futrell, and then we'll see who the third guy is. I think we've done that a lot of years where the first two guys, and then you got to kind of piece together. Could it be Cunningham? Could it be a freshman? Could McIlvain step into that role late in the season? I think you'll definitely see some spot starts from him. You've got a lot of options there in that third pitching spot, Chris. I'm interested to see offensively, has it changed at all? Because I think that's, last year you cannot have that kind of offensive output and expect to make it to Omaha, maybe even, Chris, get out of a regional, because there's some really good, this 2 and 3 seeds that can really hit the baseball. They may not be able to pitch super well, but they get hot with the bats. That's what happened to Oregon. Oregon, that's a really good Oregon team. They ended up losing in the super round to Oral Roberts, the team that got hot,
which could also hit.
Exactly. So I think Corbin knows that. Holcomb could play a big role. Braden Holcomb, the freshman. I'm not sure how much third base he's going to play offensively, though. They'll need him. Troy LaNeve is a guy, Chris. I think if could he be this year's? I'm not saying he's going to be this year's JJ Bleday, because I don't know if Eddie's ever going to get that again. But if he could do something similar, maybe get to double-digit home runs, because they need that. Start there, Chris, right? You need some home runs. You need the long ball. In today's day and age, there's a lot more points in football, a lot more points in basketball. Every sport's changing. So, offensively, Chris, that's the question. I think they've gotten better. They've got some guys talking to people saying, hey, it's their time. right? It's
Mhm.
their time. Vastine, Diaz, like you said, they're older. Bolger, Maldonado now too. So they've got some guys that have had a ton of experience. Now it's time for them to really burst out, like you brought up 2019. A lot of guys did that in 2019.
Yeah, we're at the point where we've had this talk and laughed about it. We're at the rationing content
Mm-hmm.
portion of the athletic season. I got a lot more thoughts on baseball. I will give you one thought here because I think you hit it with a lot of luck. Andrew DeCanich, watch out for that kid. He looked really
Yeah.
good when I saw him in the fall. I mean, he's probably their fifth option at starter. He might be
Mm-hmm.
best guy they got. I mean, let's not forget this guy when he came to campus 2 years ago or last year was I think I'm not going to tell you for fact he was the highest rated guy they'd ever gotten to campus, but it was really close. Draft eligible sophomore, that probably helped get him there a little bit through 6 innings last year. Now, when I saw him in fall ball at the scrimmage, he looked tremendous, and nobody's talking about him. I don't see him on any radar anywhere, which makes me I don't know if I've missed something, or he's just kind of fallen through the cracks. But I mean, I see a piece there for a big time ace that nobody's really discussing. Now we'll get into. I'll talk to people in the coming weeks and get the skinny because sometimes the guy looks great in an appearance and behind the scenes he's getting battered around by his lineup every other time.
Right.
So I don't know how that went. Now, number two, and then we'll get into basketball for just a brief second. Then I'm gonna have you pull up the mailbag because I got to be out in about 20 minutes.
Got it.
Uh, it's interesting. Wake Forest number one.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt handled Wake pretty well in that inter squad scrimmage. I couldn't go, but you and Joey were there. I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, look, I don't know how much weight to put in those. I think everybody kind of panicked a little bit after they went to Rutgers, and Vanderbilt did and got hammered. Now, that's two things. It's a small ballpark, and I think Rutgers have been practicing maybe 2 or 3 weeks longer than Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt was in its first week or maybe early second week, and that's a big difference in timing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if by similar token you throw out Vanderbilt looking great against Wake Forest here. That's also sometimes you're resting guys, you're trying to get guys situational work. I don't know what to make all that. I do know that I think they had some of their names going in that series too. So that's interesting to see. You had 2 fall scrimmages against other teams. One of them right off the bat, you're going, boy, I don't know. And then the second one, now that you see Wake as preseason number 1, you're going, okay, well, Vanderbilt more than held its own against those guys.
Yeah, that Wake is really good, Chris. I mean, they got a ton of talent. Got Chase Burns from Tennessee. Still got Nick Kurtz, Seaver King, Massey, Hard. I mean, they got the best pitching staff in the country by far. And reminds you of some of those Vandy staffs. That Wake might even have a better staff than Vandy this year. I think they definitely do. What Coach Walters, right? Tom Walters, I think, has done at Wake has been incredible, and it's been quick too. I mean, fairly quick these last few years. So, yeah, Corbin. You know how Corbin has kind of laughed at the amount of talent they had to face and gave them credit. But yeah, Vandy's got some talent of their own, Chris, and I think that showed with the amount of scouts. Joey and I walking up to the press box, at least 15 scouts right there in the right behind where they usually sit, right behind home plate. So yeah, unbelievable talent level, Chris and Wake. I think if you're Vanderbilt, you stood up to them. So I think that is a good sign, even though it was just a fall scrimmage.
And now for basketball.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yes. Auburn tonight. Auburn is on a 9-game winning streak. Auburn is number 4 in KenPom heading into the game tonight. Auburn and Houston, the only 2 teams in the country, top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. Now, Auburn has not played a lot of big-time headed to the NCAA tournament programs. It's dominance, and it's won in its winning streak. It's won all of them by double digits, Billy, since that Appalachian State loss. But I'm going back and look at Vanderbilt's schedule, okay? Of the teams it's lost to, and there's 11 losses to date, San Francisco, probably an NCAA tournament bubble team. Texas Tech probably in if you pick the field today. Memphis probably in if you pick the field today, would be in. Alabama would be in. Ole Miss would be in. Lost all those games, lost several other games to teams that would not be in the tournament. And I point that out to say what is ahead is almost nothing but teams are going to be in NCAA tournament contention. Teams that I think would be in the field if you picked it today: Auburn, which Vanderbilt plays twice; Tennessee, which Vanderbilt plays twice. That's 4 games. In fact, those would be all top 3 seeds. Mississippi State would be in. That's 5. Kentucky would be in, play them twice. That's 6 and 7. I think South Carolina would be in. That would be 8, although Carolina's loss at Georgia last night might knock that team down to the bubble. I would expect it would. So 7 or 8. A&M probably bubble in at this point after losing to Arkansas last night. That's 9. I don't think Georgia's going to be in, but got a shot. Florida would be a bubble team. But yeah, that's 9 games against teams I think are going to make the NCAA tournament. If Florida makes it, that's 2 more. That would be 11. I don't know if Arkansas's got a run in it, but that's what we're looking at the rest of the way. The only, I'm not even calling it an easy game, but Missouri, the only team that I think on their schedule remaining, and Arkansas too. Arkansas's got to catch fire. And I'll be interested to see if Arkansas is even interested in playing by the end of February. Because if it's not in the tournament mix, it might not be. But that's what's ahead for this team, and it has not handled those kinds of games very well.
Yeah, Chris, these next 4 games, it's funny, they play Auburn twice in the span of a couple of weeks, which I don't you don't typically see games that close. But yeah, Auburn tonight. I mean, top 25 team. They could be ranked even higher. Their margin for victory, I don't know the number, but it's something ridiculous. They demolished Virginia Tech by nearly 20. They beat Indiana 104-76 in Atlanta. They beat up on USC. They beat up on Arkansas last week. They beat, or a couple weeks ago, demolished LSU, a team that made pretty good work of Andy. So Auburn's really good. Chris, Janai Broome is back. We feel like they have everybody back from last year's team that came in and lost to Vanderbilt in Nashville. So I think they'll have a little bit of motivation. I don't think the crowd will be great. We'll see how many Vandy people show up. We'll see how many Auburn people show up. I think the Auburn fans that live in Nashville will probably make the trip. I don't know how many people coming up from Auburn to make that trip. But yeah, you mentioned Vandy's schedule, Chris. Auburn, Mississippi State on the road next week, Tennessee at home on Saturday, and then back at Auburn. Missouri is that team that's kind of sandwiched in against some really good teams. Kentucky, South Carolina, Texas A&M, and then at Tennessee after that, Georgia. There is not really a slouch. I mean, and we bring up Missouri as sort of that type of team that Vanderbilt maybe has a chance with, and I guess Arkansas on the road this year, with how they've struggled. I'm sure they'll get better, though. Like you said, Chris, the same stuff. I'm looking forward. There's still a lot of basketball left. That's the thing. How much can change with this team? They've lost 3 in a row. That Alabama game, like you said, I think last podcast was, I guess you could say, encouraging, but then you lose at LSU, you lose at Ole Miss, and then you have the comment by Jerry Stackhouse about, we don't get junior and senior transfers at Vanderbilt. They just don't come to Vanderbilt. Obviously, I think there was a little bit of frustration there. He was just asked about Ole Miss, and I don't think he's, and we talked about this, Chris. I don't know that he's 100% false or incorrect in saying that. I think it was directed at the Vanderbilt administration, directly. So I think, as much as that, as Ole Miss people might have been upset with that, I think that was kind of some frustration from Stackhouse. He's seeing around the league, you've got junior and senior transfers. He does have Magnon, but that's the only one he's gotten. Liam Robbins was actually a grad transfer, I guess you could say. And yeah, Chris, around the league, Ole Miss has a lot of them. Tennessee has one in Dalton Connect. Every team kind of has that guy or two that is an impact transfer. Vanderbilt so far hasn't picked up an impact transfer, at least for this season. And you're looking around, you have to do that, Chris. I mean, everybody, you can bring in as many transfer freshmen and sophomores as you want, but those transfer juniors and seniors, Stack knows, and he's right. He's right. That's what wins in today's college
Yeah.
basketball, and that's going to have to change, I think, for Vanderbilt. Chris, you're not going to, you're not going to be able to build up from those freshmen and sophomores anymore. You have that's one side of it, and you have to maintain that. I think that's kind of the hole in Stack's argument. He hasn't really done that part super well. The developing and retaining of players of high school kids you bring in. So he hasn't done
Yeah.
that part of it. You have to do that part still exists. But he's not wrong about
No.
a lot of that. It'll be interesting to see if a move is made after this season, and say a next coach comes in, would he have a similar problem? I think that's kind of where in the truth lies. But well, again, Chris, it wasn't as much of a knock at Ole Miss as it was Stackhouse just kind of showing some frustration. And but Chris, my thing is there's a lot of basketball left to be played, and
Yeah.
Joey and I have talked about it. How much can this change? They're sitting at 5-11, 0-3 in the conference. They need a win here, I think, in these next 3 or 4 games, at least one, just to change the psyche and morale of the team at least a little bit. I say that it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. You're in the SEC, Chris. So, I don't know where it comes.
Yeah. Remember when I made the joke many episodes back about that their mascot should be Spider-Man because of this pointing Spider-Man
Yep.
meme. That's where they are. And you've seen it play out with basketball. I think my guess, we'll get to this in mailbag. My guess is unless it just completely goes off the rails, which is a possibility, and they win, they go over or something like that he'll be back. You're hearing youth blame. You're hearing, well, he doesn't have his facilities yet. And now he's started it himself. Look, I've had so many questions about how they recruit and the the process is an umbrella term there, or I've been saying that since before they played their first game. You've seen it play out, but at the same time, that they cannot. It's 60 hours. You cannot transfer in more than 60 hours to Vandy. I don't have an issue with that policy in some ways, but no other SEC school is bound by that. That cuts out about half of your prospective group of transfer players. And then how much more does admissions cut out the rest of it with the requirements that other schools can? So he's not wrong about that. And this is the portion where there's so much dysfunction and lack of competency on all sides, and just lack of a winning plan that you don't know which Spider-Man's the right one. They both look like Spider-Man. They both got something against the other guy that holds water, and here we are. Let's go to the mailbag.
Let's do it.
I'll let you pull that up while I do our reads. Our mailbag is sponsored by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If your loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor Russell a call, 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Mater Nexon, also a sponsor of the show. Our friend John Levin sponsors this segment also. They advise government contractors on all aspects of their needs with a proud focus on matching legal solutions to business needs. And with that, let's have at it with the mailbag.
Well, we start with Joey, and got to get a good laugh out of this. What are your sources saying on the state of Coach Billy Derrick's job security? The team has fallen to 1-4 and seems to have a tough stretch ahead. Chris, I'm not sure what your sources are saying, but coming from the mouth of the guy that, our team's struggling. Chris, we got to switch into a new offense. I think we're going to try out this new motion offense. But third and fourth graders, somebody brought up fifth and sixth graders. Now it's third and fourth graders. So offense is not necessarily in their vocab, but we did have a couple of people chime in and say, I bet all the other teams of some of the best fifth and sixth graders money can buy, and Billy's team wasn't allowed to admit older transfers. And then BMR 17, I also understand Billy.
Thanks, Spider-Man.
I also understand Billy has alienated most of the team's fans. So there, there you go. Good stuff there. Thanks, Joey.
If you can't
ATL.
win, keep it interesting, Billy.
Yeah, exactly. We do a good job of that on our board. Definitely. Um, Next one here, Chris. I think again, I think you might have just mentioned this. ATL Door. It seems like the contract buyout for Stackhouse is usually a factor in coaching decisions, but I don't recall seeing anything about what it would cost Vandy to let Stackhouse go after this year. Any estimate of his buyout?
Luke texted me this weekend and thinks it's $8 million. I cannot tell you if that's right, if that's for um, the 249 people he's got on staff, if that covers all that too or not. But I don't think they're moving on. I don't. We'll see if I'm wrong. I think it would have to be the chancellor making the call like he did on Stephanie White. I think everybody's heard this. I don't know what else to add.
Let's go to DFW Mark. Was AJ Blazik encouraged to find another job? It seems his replacement was named very quickly for a Vanderbilt coaching search. Not sure. Not sure on that, Chris. It's really interesting. He kind of bolted for Wisconsin. I'd love to be to be a fly on the wall for that in those walls to see. Okay, the conversation between Coach Lee and Blazik. You know, was he encouraged to leave? Who knows? Maybe Wisconsin offered him more money, but the replacement, Chris. I don't know if you're familiar with the replacement, but Chris Klanakis, I want to say is how you pronounce that name. A lot of experience. He coached Lamar Jackson at Louisville, Kaepernick at Nevada. He's been to a lot of different group of five schools, power five schools. He's the replacement. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know how to answer that question, Chris. But in terms of his replacement, I think he's pretty solid. So I'm not sure if you know anything on that Blazik front. I was kind of interested. I was intrigued to see he left, and I'm sure something will come up on that. Just I don't know yet though.
Yeah, I don't know what to make. I always thought that they should have stuck with Peter Rosamondo off the jump. That they didn't. It's one person's opinion, but I think that there was some talk at the time that I think that Rosamondo to come after Blazik I'm never. I'm not going to go there because I can't substantiate it. But I don't know. I just didn't. And I liked AJ a lot. What maybe the nicest guy on the staff, really personable.
Oh yeah.
I got nothing bad to say about the guy, but I never saw an offensive line that I just had full confidence in. And that's why coaches are there. Now, look, I think that the strength and conditioning situation was really dysfunctional there. I think there's some blame to go on Brandon Horgan. I think there's some blame to go on Clark Lee. So I don't know. There's no place where strength and conditioning affects you more than it does on the offensive line. So I don't know if Blazik got dealt a bad hand from all that stuff and it made it look worse. I don't know if it was something else. I did find it was interesting that Wisconsin hired him because it's not like that's a school that misses a lot on offensive line play. So that's where I'm just I don't know what to think at this point. Maybe that's an ask me again in a year when we've seen a new guy here and seen how he does there.
Yeah, he had another Big Ten landing spot for a Vandy coach, Justin Lustig, the special teams coordinators, headed to Penn State, coach for James Franklin. They lost their special teams guy to Boise State. And Vanderbilt has promoted, or at least hearing that they're going to promote, Jeff Lepak up to their special teams coordinator, tight ends coach. So wanted to get that out there. Chris, let's see here. Anchor down.
No, that one hurts. That one hurts.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't have a lot of ambiguity on that.
No, me neither. Another great guy, Blazik and Lustig. You'd be hard pressed to find two better guy just as people. Really gonna miss interacting with them, to be honest. Anchor down 0714 with baseball season under 1 month away and everyone tired of asking and answering the same basketball questions. Could we get some early predictions and hot takes for the upcoming Vandy baseball season? Hot take? This is a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many guys.
Yeah. It's hard to say. We like to talk about the X factor every year, Chris. It's hard. It's there's so many guys. Troy LaNeve, does he have a year where he goes off for 20 home runs? Chris Maldonado is another guy.
Yeah.
Davis Diaz. There's so many. But Chris, if they all kind of, say they all play up to their ability, this is a very dangerous team.
Here's my hot take, Billy. They have 3 guys surpass a dozen home runs. Now, I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know if that's going to be LaNeve, if that's going to be Holcomb, if that's going to be Maldonado, if Davis Diaz is going to step up and do it. I think they'll have more power by committee than people think, but I might be wrong. But my Dukanich is the one, and I need more information. But if you just want something off the radar, how about him as a first-team All-SEC pitcher? If it all comes together, I mean, that's one that, again, he may not even be in the rotation to start the year, but the talent has undeniably been there. I need a lot more time. I'll be starting my digging into baseball here pretty shortly, so I'm a quarter of the way where I would normally be, but that's one that I'm watching. If you want something just as possibility, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a hot take for me, Chris. I'll just give a prediction. I know we got to go rapid fire here the last few questions, but I'll say they're in Omaha. I'll say they're in Omaha this year.
Yeah.
And for the 6th time, I think it would be. So that'll be mine. Let's see. Omador, speaking of Omaha, who'll be on the short list of coaches to replace Jerry Stackhouse? Obviously, Chris, for me, we've heard Chris Mack. I know you texted me yesterday. Can I mention this guy, Chris? Is the
Sure.
Okay. High Point head coach, and I'm already forgetting his name. Alan Huss. Alan Huss is a guy. I have a buddy that went to High Point. I texted him about it. He said he's a great coach. They've started hot here. They play in a good conference in the Big South. He's done a great job at High Point. Chris Mack is a guy that's always thrown around. College of Charleston head coach. Forgetting his name too now, Chris.
Pat Kelsey.
Pat Kelsey. Yeah, Pat Kelsey, obviously. That's who Pat Kelsey, the High Point coach. I know Richie McKay at Liberty's been mentioned.
Yeah. Casey Alexander would be on there.
Casey Alexander.
Huss is the name that I've got a contact on another Power 5 staff that's very familiar with him. And he said Huss is guy. I think he believes in him enough that he was just like, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but make him the guy and just end it. I know he's only been High Point 1 year. They're the best team in that league right now. He brought in 4 really good transfers, and he ran the NIL stuff at Creighton and ran it pretty well. So that was his reason. Now, what I think Candace Lee is, I think ultimately the chancellor is the one that's going to, the way it's been explained to me, she'll make a recommendation. He'll say either yes or no. My guess is her top 2 people would be Tommy Amaker at Harvard and Russell Turner at UC Irvine.
Interesting. Amaker would, he'd fit right.
And that's well, I'm just I don't say that just out of blind speculation. I'll leave it there.
Interesting.
Now that my information may be out of date. It might change, but I think those would be starting points of where she would look.
Interesting. Okay, Chris, rapid fire here. Given Coach Clark Lee's added support on several fronts, how about a roundtable on his odds of turning the program around to where he goes bowling 2 out of 3 years going forward? Interesting.
That seems steep.
Yeah.
I mean, they've won 2 SEC games in 3 years. I don't know how you can put that as a, if it's 50-50, take the over on that. They got to show a lot more before I'm there.
Oh yeah, I'm back to believe it when I see it. After the 5-7 season, heading into last year, Chris, I was like, okay, we were all, I think, fairly positive. At the end of the day, though, I would bet more on, in the next 2 years, maybe year 5 getting closer. Not quite this year, but year 5 getting closer to that bowl game, and then maybe, who knows what happens. Again, we have to see it. We have to see Nate Johnson and Tim Beck and all these new coaches, new players operate before we can really talk positively or negatively about this team. It's going to be different. It's going to be very different. Okay. Chi-Town Door. What is the sentiment around Vanderbilt men's basketball locker room? Has the team quit on Stackhouse?
I don't think it's quit. No, he's clearly been at odds with some guys the last couple of years. Seems like there's been some, I don't know if friction's the right word with him and Tyron Lawrence, but it hasn't gotten the Tyron Lawrence we expected. Seen the bench at certain times. I don't know. I mean, it's just I think the main explanation for their performance, I'm not ruling that one out, is they're just not very good.
Yeah,
They've got the worst depth in the league. They've got they got three guys I like. They've got Ezra Mannion is a heck of a player. Could play for about any Vandy team we've seen. Tyron Lawrence can be good on certain nights, and has been more good than bad lately. And Van Lubin's been a nice guy. After that, well, Jason Rivera-Torres, that's a guy that I really like, but their depth is atrocious.
Yeah, Chris, they don't have enough players. I mean, it's not overly complicated. I don't think they've quit on him, but I can't imagine the locker room morale is great right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 5-11, 0-3 in the league. You got some tough games coming up. And your own fans aren't necessarily showing up to the games. Tyler Lawrence came out and said, he said he wishes more fans would be here. Well, you are 5-11, and I think that kind of affects the morale.
Hard to blame the fans for this one.
Yeah. Can we retain some of the young talent, Isaiah West, Rivera-Torres, after Stackhouse is firing? Again, this is assuming Stackhouse is fired. You don't think it's happening.
No.
I'm kind of leaning on, for the fans' sake, banking on it. Again, I don't know. No one knows. I don't think. But Isaiah West, probably, I would think so, because he's locally. I don't know. Rivera-Torres might be tougher because of his relationship with Stack. I think Stack did a good job getting him here. Obviously with the movie he played in, but that's probably a little bit of a tougher question to answer.
Well, let me read you some stats. I really like Rivera-Torres. The shooting efficiency isn't quite there yet, but he's a freshman. I think he's going to be a really good player for somebody, whether it's Vandy or somebody else in a couple of years. I guess West statistically has been a little bit better than I knew. Although he's got more turnovers and assists, which is not where you really want to be as a point guard. Lang has got a good rebounding skill set. He's not going to be much of a scorer. J.Q. Roberts is shooting 24% from the field. Malik Presley is shooting 29% from the field. They're both scoring under 2 points a game. I just don't think this is a bumper crop of a freshman class. I mean, you definitely want to keep Rivera-Torres. Maybe with West as he gets further out from the injury, it works. But and Lang can help you. But if those guys are your starters next year, you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. I mean, I think there's potential that they roll out a team if they don't make a coaching change next year that's worse than the one we're seeing now.
Yeah, and Chris, like tonight, Janai and Broom, most of the game's probably going to be guarded by Carter Lang. It's not a matchup that's favorable. No. There's too many of those where you look at and you're going, "Oh, this guy's guarding this guy." That's not right. There's too much of that with this team. So yeah, we'll see tonight though, and that'll pretty much do it, Chris. I think we covered some of the other questions already. But yeah, thanks everybody. We got especially Joey for the question kicking us off.
Yeah, well, back at it Wednesday, next Wednesday with Luke. Maybe Billy wins a game between now and then.
Yeah, Chris, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll be jobless. We'll have to see. It's getting hot.
Ooh, well, it's not hot here. It's 3 degrees when I walked Oreo this morning. So
stay safe if you are. Yeah, planning on going tonight. Be smart about it. Again, I'll be interested to see the crowd. Joey and I are going to attempt to get over there. My route's probably a little bit tougher than Joey's, but we'll see. Yeah. You got Auburn tonight, and then Saturday. Keep forgetting the schedule. I want to say it's Mississippi State, Chris, at Mississippi State. So
it is. Their next 4 are brutal. At Mississippi State, Tennessee here, Auburn there.
Well, you get to see the baseball team. They're signing autographs before the game tonight.
There you
So
go.
maybe some motivation there for fans.
There's always a silver lining, Billy. We just got to
Yeah.
look hard enough. Actually, there's not always a silver lining. I can tell you that from 21 years of this. But
You're the man for that.
but we find one where we can. And all kidding aside. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. This is the Vandy Sports Podcast. Anchor Impact guys. They present this thing. Let's give them their due on the way out too.
Commodore Nation, get closer to Vanderbilt athletics than ever before with Anchor Impact, the official NIL collective for Vanderbilt University. Gain access to unmatched exclusive coverage and be part of a one-of-a-kind community. As an Anchor Impact member, you gain exclusive privileges and benefits offering deeper engagement with student athletes, coaches, staff, and the entire Vanderbilt community. You can access behind-the-scenes content, exclusive events, unique merchandise, and personalized experiences, creating an unparalleled connection with the student athlete's journey, a lot like the interview Chris did with CJ Taylor. So subscribe. You can go check that out. You also become a catalyst for change, redefining the landscape of college athletics and showcasing the potential impact of NIL on student athletes' lives. Help the Commodores thrive and contribute now by logging on to anchorimpact.com/register.
Yeah, that's their way out of a lot of this. So hope the folks out there listening will support it. All right. For Billy Derrick, I'm Chris Lee. This has been the Vandy Sports Podcast. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you again soon.